Hello there, first grade scientist. This week we are going to be learning about interdependence. That's a big word. Why don't you guys try to say that with me? Interdependence. Are there any words in there that you see that we might know in this very big long word? Take a second. See if you see anything. I see the word in. Ooh, I see the word in. Pen. How many vowels do we have in this word? There seems to be a lot in there, huh? All right. Well, like I said, we're going to be learning about interdependence. And that is the relationship between two or more living things where each one benefits from the other one. In other words, two or more living things depend on each other to survive and live. Just like, for instance, you depend on mom and dad to take care of you, to give you a place to live, to give you food, and things like that. So you depend on them, all right? But did you know that animals and plants depend on each other as well? They do. So we are going to be learning about interdependence. Today we're just going to go over vocabulary words, and then I am going to show you an example for your day 2 work in science. Okay, so let's start. Let me see on our vocabulary. All right, and excuse me, I have to use my mouse here. All right, so our first one is survive. Say that with me. Survive. And that simply means to stay alive, right? Okay, our next one is shelter. Say that with me. Shelter. And that's protection from the outside. And I bet maybe today, well, maybe not today, it's supposed to be rainy, but maybe you can go around outside when it's nice and sunny and see how many different shelters there are for the outdoor animals, the wildlife. Where do they go to protect themselves, maybe from the rain or predators? Depend. That means you rely on or need something or someone. And remember, we depend on a certain few things to stay alive. Maybe you can remember them, hopefully. Remember, space, air, food, water, shelter. Those things we depend on to stay alive. Habitat. That's a place where an animal or plant lives. Habitat. Who do you think is probably snoring away in that big hole? It's called a den. I wonder what animal's in there. Food chain. And this one we'll probably learn next week. But food chain, this one's really cool. How energy goes from one thing to another. In other words, almost kind of like the circle in life from The Lion King. How Simba dad explains to him. How they hunt to eat, but then when they pass on, they're used for other things to eat off. So just for example, the tree, the mouse eats the tree. And what's going to eat the mouse? That bird or hawk. So food chain, that one will be a more fun one to learn later on. Terrarium. This one is a man-made habitat for things that live on land. Let me zoom in on here, my camera. What do you guys notice in there? If you've ever seen one of these, maybe at the zoo, what kind of animals or reptiles or insects? What did you see living in those? And actually, in one of your assignments, I think it was actually extra credit if you wanted to make your own from home. Those would be interesting to see if you guys want to take pictures of those for me. And I think our last one, ooh, an aquarium. That's a man-made habitat for things that live in what? Water. Zoom in on here. What do you think might live in there? In an aquarium. That is it. Okay, so for your homework, and if you need to replay this video to look at the vocabulary again. But your day 2 homework looks something like this. I had to hand make mine because my printer is out of ink. So if you have to hand make yours, that works just as well as a printed one. Okay, so for example, for day 2, it says to look at all your vocabulary words again that is on this video. Okay, you're going to stop and pause at each word. You're going to put each word in its own little bubble. Like for instance, I took shelter. Okay, so you put that right in the middle. Over here in the upper corner, you're going to write the definition of the word in your own words. So for instance, for shelter, in my own words, I put a place you can live in. Okay, the next one, I'm going to ask you to draw a picture of a shelter. Make sure you label too. See how Miss Nelson labeled my pictures? So just in case you didn't know what that was, it's a house. All right, down here I want to see maybe an example for a plant or animal type of shelter. So I drew a tree, but there is many, many more shelters that animals live in. And I also labeled the tree part, but I also labeled the hole in the tree because guess who can live in those? All kinds of critters. This bottom corner, you're going to draw me a non-example. For instance, I drew a bicycle. Is that a type of shelter? No, it is not. So that's a non-example for the word shelter. Okay, and if you guys have any questions, ask your mom or dad, or feel free to get a hold of me. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.